Okay, so spiritual channeling. So this is a place where, as many people who start on a path or on a spiritual path, they begin to, let's just say metaphorically, look up. They start to have a sense of this internal guidance system. There's a belief that there's more than this third dimensional world we walk around in. There's also a belief in many of those people. They're starting to wake up. I say that with great respect. They're starting to say, there's more to me than this. I've always believed these things, but nobody else has said anything about them. I've always believed this to be true, and I'm starting to notice that it plays out that way. I'm willing to step outside of my box. All that's part of that waking up. And in that process, one of the things that spiritual people do is they read books and they talk to other people, and they begin to get an understanding. The understanding is still really small because it's passed on from generations and historically. It wasn't even until the late 70s that Western meditation, transcendental meditation, came into the West from the East. So as you begin to study, a lot of times you begin to again give up your seniority. And in some cases, and people say, oh, there's these angels and the ascended masters and lords of light and these great beings of light, and I want to be with them. So they start setting the plate in a clear manner of speaking. Some of them have this ability called transmediumship. It's a set of channels that run through the body into the chakras, and it's the ability for you as a being to get in the body at birth and get out of the body at death, and get in and out of the body in between, which most people do lots of. But it also, when it's not understood, it's a vehicle for another being to get in the body. And so in this space, the place that started the conversation, I have these friends who are channelers and they're not really nice. Well, a lot of times they say, I'm available to channel, come on in.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden this being shows up and says, oh, I can help you out. And the person gives up their seniority. And then that wonderful being moves in with his 6 wives, 12 dogs, 4 cats, and 16 kids, and I'm moving in forever.
Yeah.
Now we're back at that mentally ill, we're back at that disturbed level. And so, does that happen? Absolutely it happens. So
there's what I'm hearing is that there's a level of what I would call glamour. It's really cool to channel. I'm glamorized by it. So I'm going to ask anybody to come in and then I'll be cool.
For a lot of people.
Yeah.
See, now this, in Mastering Alchemy, it gets back to why we spend so much time on creating the vibrations of certain, capable, gracious, very present seniority in this space. So, but now there's a whole nother side of spiritual channeling that's also really fascinating, the extraterrestrials.
Ah.
Oh yeah, so are they real? Absolutely they're real. And are they in a 3-dimensional, 4th dimensional, 5th dimensional configuration of time and space? Absolutely. Do they play here in visible terms? No. Nobody's ever seen an alien land on the planet. Or some have. But that level of channeling is something that people get very enamored with. And one of the things that happens to many people, we've watched over many years, is they don't know how to set boundaries for channeling. And one of the most fundamental boundaries is first, if you're going to channel, find somebody who knows what you're doing. Really, there are people out there who know what they're doing. But one of the very fundamental rules of channeling is, this is my body. And so I'm going to bring you in, and when you come in, you only come into a very specific place, maybe a point, a tiny pinpoint in the 5th chakra to communicate. Now, nobody go out and follow my instructions. These are not instructions. These are just pieces of information. So, and when we're done, you leave and you take all of your energy with you. You don't leave anything behind. Do you understand being? And if the answer is not yes, and clearly yes, this is not a being that you want to begin to play with. So then the next level of this is, let's say, the ascended masters, the archangelics, the beings that have a great presence. They have no interest in violating you. They have no interest in imposing on you. They have no interest in providing you with truth. They are there and they will tell you structure and provide you information to choose from. It is your job to discern whether this is a piece of information that has value to you, whether it's a piece of information you don't understand, but I'm just going to put it over here on the side and it'll come into play at some time in the future, or it's a piece of information that doesn't feel right. And again, that internal guidance system begins to be the place that guides all of this. But in those cases, in that preparation space, what happens is you step aside and they will come in and they will take their energy with them when they leave. And they'll provide you normally pieces of information that you have an interest in. And so that is what most people identify as channeling. However, there is a higher aspect of channeling that is much more aligned with who every single being is. It has nothing to do with giving up seniority. It has nothing to do with that one's better and this one's lesser. These are great beings, I'm just a lowly human being. The reality, when you start to have seniority, you start to have a set of certainty, you start to have a belief in yourself, and you start to have a comfort level, you begin to have interaction with these great beings, sitting at the table with them.
So they're not coming into your body, you're just in their presence.
It's very much in their presence. It's not so much that they come in, it's you begin to have this experience in the heart. You begin to meet them in the heart center. And it's in that heart center where this awareness and communication occurs. And it's something that, as a person develops that awareness, as they do some very fundamental things, they define their space, they begin to get clear about observing, choosing, and then acting. They begin to have an awareness of the noise and drama of a third dimension is an external set of conditions that really have nothing to do with you at all. And it's really a space where I want to know myself. And it's in that space where you begin to have this awareness. Like in my awareness of that, I can have a conversation with anybody right now. I can have that conversation in a meditation space. I can ask a question. You can ask a question, and I can have this grasp of knowledge. Many times it comes from a being. Many times it's the awareness of the answer.
Yeah.
But it's not going out. It's not leaving. It's being who you are and observing and absorbing and allowing and engaging. That level of channeling is what is coming. And it's now beginning to be more and more clear. And it's going to be absolutely present in every child born after 2012. They have that communication structure in their space right now. And they will evolve into it. It will become part of their interaction, just who they are.
Wow.
That's what channeling will become.
Yeah. So I have one last clarifying question to ask about this channeling subject. So the student emailed or posted about this, and so what is it that when the person channels, they're saying all this wisdom, but when they come back into their body, they're mean and nasty and they're mismanaged?
Yeah. So a couple things could happen. We saw a Filipino healer at one time,
Yes.
and this woman was really amazing, and she stuck her hand right in my body, right in 10 other people's body, pulled out this little stringy stuff, said, here's what's going on.
Mhm.
That was a fabulous experience. And then as soon as she stepped out of that, in that little slice of consciousness, mean,
Yeah.
nasty woman, just swearing at people, and it's like, whoa, what was this? So very interesting. So that alignment with spiritual well-being, who she really was, but she was also a very beaten up person and was constantly in fear, and this was a gig to her.
Yeah.
And she really got it spiritually, but it was a way of making money, it was a way of having prestige, it was all those kind of things.
So she wasn't listening to what the guides or whoever were saying to improve herself.
No,
It was just a gig.
a thing for that. And
Yeah.
there's another part of this where a lot of times the being that comes into the body, remember that group that don't ascend into heaven?
Mm-hmm.
They don't know much more than the average person. And then there are beings, it's a whole wide span. I mean, there's very stupid beings, and people give up their seniority because I'm channeling. It's like, really? Then there are beings that kind of play in this higher level of this, and they're in their own evolution. They're figuring it out, and they don't have a body. So being able to do that gives me a body.
Yeah.
And the whole game is you have to have a human body.
Yeah.
The game is about human bodies. The whole thing. You know, the Ascended Masters say all the time, we know the probabilities and the possibilities, and we can give you all kinds of information, but you are the human being.
Yeah.
You are the creator being
Yeah.
that makes it all change. So, but many of those beings that people channel, they channel them because I like you because you're like me.
Mm-hmm.
And so just because you're channeling doesn't mean you're a nice person or a spiritual person or a considered, respectful person.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the beings and the nature of the personality
Yeah.
that is doing the channeling, that his friends or his awareness.
Yeah.
So, but the key is giving up your seniority. It's one of your most precious gifts, is your ownership of yourself. It's when you go out to try to find your truth is where we get in trouble. And that includes channeling. Please tell me the truth. Well, they don't know the truth any more than
And
you.
their truth is very different than your truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, channeling.
Yeah.
Interesting adventure.
Indeed.